Another day, another win, another sweep. The Giants are off to their best start since 2003. They have the best record in the major leagues. Here's why what they're doing is sustainable, and here's why it's not.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily San Francisco Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Giants, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. My name is Ben Kaspick, and on the show we provide daily episodes Monday through Friday, talking about the San Francisco Giants in a way that's data-driven and rational, but also simple, passionate, and accessible to all. I've been podcasting about the Giants since 2015 and hosting this show for over 6 years, and I'm a lifelong Giants fan. Thank you for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube. Check us out there if you have not already. And please hit that subscribe button wherever it is that you're following the show. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first order. And coming up on today's show, we're going to get into, like I said, the Giants sweeping the Seattle Mariners, having their best start in over 20 years at 8-1, having the best record in baseball, winning a couple games in this series in walk-off fashion, and what's sustainable and what's not. And then ultimately, what do I see from this team moving forward? And so, a lot of excitement over the weekend. The home opener was wild. The Giants, down to their last out, Willy Adames, of all people, their biggest signing in franchise history, $182 million, had been struggling to start the season. And he comes up with just a little opposite field doink single that scores 2 runs and wins the game. And then in the finale, who else other than Wilmer Flores pinch hitting for Christian Koss with the Giants tied in the 9th inning, delivering a single for another walk-off. So easily could have lost 2 games in this series, easily could have lost on opening day. You know, they were down to their last out on opening day against the Reds, who, by the way, are coming back into town starting tonight. So, and it's going to be a rematch with Logan Webb and Hunter Green. So anyway, that will maybe get into some of that about how they've had some down to their last out wins in terms of unsustainability, but what's been sustainable? And the first thing to me that jumps off the page, the first thing is that Heliot Ramos is showing us that last year wasn't a fluke. And I know I've discussed this already this year, but he continues to show it with every at-bat. What he's showing to me is that he is a major league hitter. And going into last year, we for sure didn't know that. But this year, he's just done it consistently enough. And like throughout all of last season, like he was consistent and he had his ups, he had his downs. And when he had his downs, he came back up. And then when he went up, he came down and then up. But he never like just fell off a cliff and was never to be heard of again. And that's what you can see sometimes. Like, for example, not to throw him under the bus, but like David VR, we saw an up and we saw a down and we just never saw him come back up. But for Ramos, it's just been pretty consistent. And in this series, he just delivered more of the same. Let's see, the 3 games against Seattle, he had 3 hits in the home opener, and then he had another hit in the middle game, and he had another hit in the finale. And importantly, he only struck out 1 time in the entire series. His strikeout rate in the series was just 7.1%. And so he also oddly, like he had, remember, all those extra base hits, but he had no extra base hits out of his 5 hits in the series. They were all singles. So that's just kind of a quirk of baseball. But Heliot Ramos at age 25, doing what he's doing and proving that he is kind of a middle of the order type bat. And what I've seen defensively has been impressive in left. It's just a great sign for sustainability and longevity to the lineup. And then another thing, I mean, some of the guys, we could rattle off, like, what you're going to get out of a Matt Chapman. And ultimately, what you're going to get out of a guy like Willy Adames, even though if you look at him, he's been, by wins above replacement, their worst player at minus 0.3, and he's hitting 216 with a 268 on base and 270 slugging. And so some of that is encouraging because you say they're 8-1 and they haven't gotten much in the way of consistent contribution. He's had some huge hits, including that one that won the game. And if you didn't get that hit, that's a loss. So, some of these numbers, they try to take context out of the equation. But if you put context into the equation, he won that game. So, there is that too. But you know what you're going to get out of certain veteran guys. But how about Jung-Hoo Lee? And proving, I think, even though it's a small sample, that clearly he is capable of hitting at the major league level, which in 37 games last year, he struggled. He hit 262, which is above average in this day and age, but just a 310 on base and 331 slugging. So it was close to 20% below average offense. But now, I mean, that was his major league career coming into this year. And so already in just 8 games, he's brought his career numbers up to, instead of 17% below average offensively, 2% below average offensively. So roughly league average when you combine last year and this year. But this year's been off the charts good. I think he leads the major leagues in doubles. He has 6. He has 11 hits, 5 singles, and 6 doubles. And he's definitely going to get some triples. He definitely was going to maybe have an inside the park home run, but a bad bounce robbed him of that at Oracle Park, which we do see happen. But the expected numbers for Lee last year, like I said, were better than the actual results. And this year, he's overperforming the expected numbers, but the expected numbers are still good. And so Lee is hitting 344 with a 400 on base and 531 slugging. And again, age 26. So with Ramos, age 25. With Lee, age 26. Like, you think of Lee maybe as an older-ish player, not that would be old, but like, because you signed him to a free agent deal, a lot of times those guys aren't 25 entering year 1 of the deal, but he was. And so it's rare that you can buy a young, talented player on the free agent market, and that's what they did. And I think we're seeing at bat that Jung-Hoo Lee is someone to be excited about moving forward. And there's a reason that the previous regime gave him a 6-year, $113 million contract before accounting for the posting fees. And then how about a rebound by Wilmer Flores? Clearly, Wilmer Flores feeling better this year than he felt at any point last season. And he won the game on Sunday. He definitely was responsible, played a huge role in multiple wins for the Giants thus far this season with home runs. He's got 4 home runs on the season. He hit 4 all of last season. And overall, Wilmer hitting 273, 314 on base, 636 slugging. But just in general, Wilmer Flores is healthy. And when he's healthy, he's been a very good hitter. Like, in his Giants career, when I say very good, I mean, let's pump the brakes a little bit. He's hit 80 home runs, by the way, in his Giants career. What a great kind of late. I mean, he was 28 when they first signed him in his first year here. So this is his 6th season with the Giants. So he is a long tenured player, one of their longest tenured players. And in his Giants career, 251 average, solid, 324 on base, solid, 441 slugging. That's where he's really done it. That's above average. And yeah, so him being back, and then, like I said, with guys, what you're going to get. You know what you're going to get out of Logan Webb. You know what you're going to get out of, I think, Ryan Walker and Tyler Rogers. And then some other guys like Camilo Doval having a bounce back season looks to be on the horizon. He's been better, although his last couple of outings were a little more shaky. He did blow the save on Sunday, but nonetheless, I fully expect a Camilo Doval rebound. And so far, for the most part, he's got a 1.80 ERA, a 2.85 expected ERA, 3.49 fielding independent pitching. So, the 63% ground ball rate. He made a really good pitch to Randy Arozarena that tied the game. You just kind of tip your cap. Anyway, with all of that said, there are signals of unsustainability. Not just, obviously, they're not going to have this winning percentage all year, but what are the red flags? And we'll get into them in just a minute. And before we do, today's episode of Locked On Giants is brought to you in part by Just Ingredients. When it comes to fueling your body, quality matters. That's why Just Ingredients is changing the game with clean, high-quality products designed to support better health and peak performance. Just Ingredients offers an NSF-certified line of protein powder, electrolytes, pre-workout, and creatine, all rigorously tested to ensure they're free from substances banned by major athletic organizations. Just Ingredients has partnered with two-time MVP Bryce Harper, who trusts their NSF-certified sports line to fuel his training and recovery. My good friend has been unable to stop talking about Just Ingredients since he got his hands on his, and I've been waiting to get my hands on mine. Personally, I've got to get the vegan option, and I just can't wait to get my hands on it because what Just Ingredients provides is wholesome, nourishing ingredients without the artificial junk. And for me, that's what it's all about. Visit justingredients.us and use code LOCKEDONMLB for 20% off. And for more wellness tips, follow at just.ingredients on Instagram. All right, as promised, what is unsustainable? Not just, obviously, the winning percentage is nearly 90%. You're not going to keep that up no matter what. But other things that kind of you squint and say, this is a little bit of a red flag. I would call this more of the red flag zone than the unsustainable zone because nobody sustains an 8-1 winning percentage. It's like 88%. Anyway, thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. Everydayers, coming up tomorrow, we are going to be breaking down the first game of the series, a rematch of opening day with the Reds in town and specifically Logan Webb and Hunter Green going back at it. Logan Webb was iffy on opening day, but then his next start was very good in Houston, and now he's going to take on the Reds again. The Reds are 3-7, so we'll be breaking this one down. Starts at 6:45, breaking it down tomorrow. So, where are the red flags? You don't really have to look that hard to find some. I mean, there are other positives that I didn't even get to. Luis Matos has just been really good, like swinging the bat really well. Hasn't even struck out in 15 plate appearances. Even when he's making outs, he's crushing the ball. So I'm intrigued by what I've seen by Matos. Yastrzemski's playing really well. Hit an opposite field 3-run homer on Sunday. Said he told his daughter asked him to hit a homer, so he did. Hope he asks him more because that was huge. The starter was dominating the Giants, Brandon Wu, and then they just got to him for a 4-run inning, and that was all they needed. Well, no, they needed one more in the ninth. But there's Yaz and there's Matos. Those guys contribute to the good things. But when it comes to unsustainability or red flags, the first place that I look is going to be with two starting pitchers in particular, and those guys are Robbie Ray and Justin Verlander. So Justin Verlander, he got the home opener. I thought he looked really good in Cincinnati. He did make the only he started the only game that the Giants have lost, but they lost 3-2. So he wasn't bad, but he was not good in the home opener. The Giants just kind of bailed him out. Like the final score was whatever it was, 10-9. Yeah, 10-9. But overall in the season, Justin Verlander, 6.14 ERA, 7.84 expected ERA, 5.95 fielding independent pitching. And you just start to like combine that with last year, which looked similarly bad. And you're looking at his last nearly 100 innings, an ERA of 5.53, fielding independent pitching of 4.87, up near 5. So, that is slightly concerning. The strikeout rate continues to be down. It's been below average this year, and the previous 2 years it was down as well, below major league average. So that's unusual for Verlander. When he's at his best, he was a big time strikeout pitcher. And I don't know, there are certain green flags in his profile, like he's probably not going to allow a 375 batting average on balls in play. He's probably not going to allow homers on 20% of his fly balls. He, in his career, has allowed homers on 9% of his fly balls, but he's just getting hit pretty hard. And if you look at the kind of the quality of the stuff, every pitch has graded as below average. The only thing that's graded as above average has been his location. So I don't know. And then you start to worry about, okay, yeah, it's early. He's made 2 starts. I say ride it out, and it's not time to panic, certainly, especially when you're 8-1. You can just forget about stuff like this. But what if this continues? Then what do? You're locked in, thankfully, just for 1 year, if it were to go poorly. But at the same time, it's Justin Verlander, and also it's Buster Posey running the front office. And so I think they would continue to trot him out there, even if he was struggling all year. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Posey would be a little more ruthless than I'm expecting. We don't really know. And then another player that I have some concerns about is Robbie Ray, who you might say, what? You're crazy. He's got a 3.18 ERA. Well, as you know, if you've ever listened to the show, we dig a little bit deeper than just ERA here. So Robbie Ray has as many walks as strikeouts, and that's not good because the walk rate is high and the strikeout rate is very low. He's struck out only 13.6% of batters. He struck out a third of batters, 33.3% last year. It's 2 starts. He could go out there and have a 12 strikeout game and just completely turn these numbers around. So again, we're not panicking here. The barrel rate is very high, barrel being like ideal contact by hitters. It's also high for Verlander. Well, actually, it's not that high for Verlander. For Verlander, it's 11.5%. For Robbie Ray, it's 22%. So 1 out of 5 balls that have been put in play against Robbie Ray have been a barrel, and that's hard contact in the air, essentially. And so the only way that Robbie Ray has a 3.18 ERA is that he's limited batters to a 138 batting average on balls in play, and he's also stranded 100% of the base runners that he's allowed. And you're just not going to do that. At the end of the year, you're going to allow about 72, you're going to strand about 72% of your base runners. In Robbie Ray's case, he's been a little above that in his career at 77% of his base runners stranded, but generally guys are league average in this category unless they're extreme strikeout pitchers, which Ray has been at times in the past, but not so far this year. But anyway, 3.18 ERA. What's the expected ERA, you may ask? 7.98. And this is based on the quality of contact. So he's kind of been getting shellacked, but the balls have been finding gloves. And that's what I've seen. I've seen, in Cincinnati, he was perfect through his first 5 innings, but then he did allow a couple of home runs. And then in his next start, there was a lot of hard contact that was caught like deep in center field, for example, by Jung Lee. And the fielding independent pitching, based on that strikeout rate, walk rate, home run to fly ball ratio, 7.06. So when your peripherals are kind of screaming 7 or 8 in terms of ERA prediction and you're at 3.18, there's some good fortune involved. And it kind of, when I say red flags, it's a little bit of a red flag. The non-red flag part is that it's 2 starts. And so we're not going to overreact to 2 starts. But again, getting to pitch quality, this is something that I pointed out after his first start. So now we've got 2 in the books. There's this stuff plus metric that gets featured on Fangraphs. The league average stuff is 100 and he's at 98. League average location is 100 and he's at 86. So it's largely been a function of poor command. But also, I want to get into the fact that, I said this after his last start. There's a lot of talk about his changeup and how it completely changed things around. No pun intended. But the quality of the changeup is graded as just not good by this stuff plus metric. So time will tell if it really is an effective pitch for him. But there's really not much about this 3.18 ERA that looks sustainable. Like if he continues to get the underlying numbers that we just talked about in terms of low strikeouts, high walks, lots of barrels, the ERA is going to balloon. And his next start will probably be in Yankee Stadium, which is going to be scary, and maybe like a 4 home runs allowed type of start if you pitch this way. So the fastball has graded out really well. So nothing wrong with his fastball, but his slider and his changeup have graded out quite poorly, and his curveball has graded out poorly. All 3 grading out as below average offerings at this point, with the changeup just being quite bad according to the quality of the stuff. And it's kind of complicated how they break this down, but they look at movement profiles of similar just of changeups and how they move. And, honestly, I got to do a little more research to explain it well. But I know that this is kind of the next big thing in like the public sphere is like just grading pitch qualities. And so far, the fastball, yes, but everything else, not so much. And then the command, not so much. But we'll pump the brakes on overreacting to 2 starts. So there are some more red flags to point out, and we'll get to those in just a minute and give our final thoughts, because it's a mixed bag now that I've kind of looked at all the positives and all the red flags. So what do we expect really from this team moving forward? How have the projections adjusted for this team moving forward? So we'll get into all of that in just a minute. And before we do, today's episode is brought to you in part by Game Time. There's no better thing than catching an MLB game live, in my opinion. There's nothing better. The crack of the bat, the roar of the crowd, the smell of the garlic fries at Oracle Park. And if you're going to look for last-minute tickets, Game Time makes the ticket buying process easier than ever with last-minute deals, all-in pricing, and a lowest price guarantee. Game Time takes the stress out of buying MLB tickets. Plus, ticket prices drop as Game Time gets closer, meaning you can score an incredible deal. Game Time is the official ticketing partner of Locked On, and as the Reds come into town, I can count on them to help grab tickets that meet my needs. And I did for the Giants' little 2-game series against the Tigers, where I found my favorite seats at an incredible price. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, here we go. We are going to wrap it all up with our thoughts on the Giants' 8-1 start. And yes, there's obviously a lot of good when you start 8-1. You're not going to look at the numbers and be like, wow, these are terrible. But also, there's obviously going to be unsustainability to just being 8-1, and they're certainly not without their red flags. How about another red flag? Patrick Bailey not hitting at all, and we'll see if he can get it going. Christian Koss, only 7 plate appearances, but not hitting at all. Tyler Fitzgerald really struggling is a concern because they don't really have an answer at second base. They've got a bunch of guys who are unproven. Tyler Fitzgerald, Casey Schmidt is on the roster but has barely played. Only has 7 plate appearances on the season, same as Christian Koss. Brett Wisely's in the minor leagues, but beyond that, I mean, it could be that second base just becomes a big glaring hole all season long, like if none of the young players step up. And so somebody's going to have to, and Fitzgerald has been a slow start. I'm not going to worry about Bailey because he doesn't really have to hit. And I also want to point out, this is kind of, I guess, in conclusion, looking at the pros and the cons, the green flags, the red flags, that, for example, with the pitching, I mentioned Verlander and Robbie Ray. Well, the counter argument to that is Landon Roup and Hayden Birdsong. And Hayden Birdsong, looks like he deserves to be in a major league rotation, but they just didn't have room for him because of the presence of a lot of veterans, and also one young pitcher in Landon Roup, who, by the way, in his one start struck out, 2 batters per inning. So this is an example where the ERA is deceiving in the other direction. 6.75 ERA, 1.71 expected ERA. He just walked too many guys. He walked 20% of batters faced, but he struck out 40% of batters faced. So encouraged by Landon Roup, and then Hayden Birdsong and many beyond him. The depth of young pitching talent that the Giants have can absolutely step in if a move needs to be made to take over for a struggling veteran pitcher. And so if that opportunity comes up, the Giants have an answer for it. And then other green flags are some guys in the bullpen, like Randy Rodriguez has just been disgusting and has gotten them out of multiple jams, like guys on base, and he's just come in and just been dominant and gotten out of situations like multiple times. And if you look at the quality of his stuff, I mean, he's got a 121 stuff plus rating, meaning 20% above average stuff overall. Both of his pitches, the slider, which he throws more than the fastball, at least this year, has been way above average, and the fastball has been way above average, and the location has been above average. So Randy Rodriguez has struck out almost half of the batters he's faced, 47.4. He's walked 0 batters. His ground ball rate is 60%. So it's a 0 ERA, a 0.88 expected ERA, a negative 0.29 fielding independent pitching. I mean, he looks legit. And yet it's 5 innings, so we'll temper our expectations a little bit. But there you go, potentially another impact arm in a bullpen that has Camilo Doval and Ryan Walker and the perpetually underrated Tyler Rogers, who hasn't allowed a run, by the way. Jordan Hicks has made 2 starts and has an ERA of 2.38, 3.35 expected ERA, 4.76 fielding independent pitching. But at this stage, I'd look more at expected ERA, as fielding independent pitching is subject to fluctuate wildly based on, if you allow a couple of home runs like he did yesterday, then that'll drive that up. But the quality of contact overall has not been good against Hicks, and he's looked pretty good. And then you've got your guys like Spencer Bivens and Lou Trevino, who overall have not been great. It was just one rough outing for Trevino. It seems like every Bivens outing has been a little sketchy, but they've got guys, like I said, all this young pitching in the minor leagues that can come up if needed. So I'm not so worried pitching wise. And so that's a good thing, because on the offensive side, there are fewer red flags. I think it's more on the pitching side. And so, with with Ramos, that's why Ramos was the first guy. And like Jung Lee and what Luis Matos has been able to do, I think second base is kind of the one spot you maybe worry about at this phase. But with Flores, and I believe in Wade and Bailey, he doesn't even have to hit. The whole outfield feels solid, and then the left side of the infield is, I don't worry about Adames, even though he's struggled overall. So in conclusion, I like where this team's at. I liked where they were at coming into the year. The mentality is another thing that I should have talked about, like in terms of sustainability. They clearly have this like good chemistry and just winning mentality, and everybody pulling on the same rope, trying to just win a game. But you're going to go through tough stretches, and so you're not always going to play great. And even in bad years in the last few, they've had 8-1 stretches. They had a 10-game winning streak either last year or the year before. So you can have good stretches and still end up mediocre. But to me, there does seem to be some degree of sustainability to this being an underratedly and unexpectedly to some solid to good team. And so the projections have changed because they've got 8 wins in the bank, and you can't take those away from them, and only 1 loss, best record in baseball. So now the Fangraphs projections have them as over 50% odds to make the playoffs, 85.6 to be precise, wins. This ATC projection system, 85.4 wins, over 50% chance to make the playoffs. The Bat X, which is kind of one of the more advanced projection systems, has the Giants winning 87.8 games with playoff odds of about 70%. And so this system has been the highest on them all along. And that was one of my bold predictions, was 88 wins for the Giants. And so according to the Bat X, that's where they'll end up. And so we'll roll with that for now. And then this last one, Oopsie, is the name of the projection system, which I don't even like saying because I think it's a silly name, has them, that's the worst one for the Giants. So I don't like it for 2 reasons now. It has them at 84.4 wins and 42% playoff odds. But all of that to say, every system, because those wins are in the bank and the lack of losses are in the bank for 9 games, it improves the projections. That is how projections work. If you have this like crazy hot stretch, then that was, it's not like it then says, well, now you're going to lose more because it's like if you flip a coin and you get like 10 straight heads, it doesn't make tails more likely. Every coin flip is still likely to produce, is going to produce a 50% odds on heads or tails. But if you get those 10 straight tails, those are in the bank and you can't take them back. So that is all the time we have for today. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. Everydayers tomorrow breaking down part 2 of Logan Webb versus Hunter Green. Reds come in 3-7, Giants 8-1. Thank you for making Locked On Giants your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the all new Locked On MLB Game Night. Every game, every night, all season long. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Once again, my name is Ben Kaspick. Check me out on Twitter or X at Ben Kaspick, Kaspick. If you like this show, please consider rating it or leaving a review. It helps me out a ton. Thanks again for listening. Today, you are now Locked On Giants.